From Ohio, go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, ma'am. As you say, I am a Gulf War veteran, and I do support going to war and getting the terrorists and making them pay for the damage and the harm and the pain that they've caused here in the United States. But I do hope that if we do go over there and we do cause a conflict, that we do it completely this time and not like Desert Storm. I mean, we liberated Kuwait over there, but the job was not finished. If we go after the terrorists that attacked our country, I want us to finish the job. The American people has taken America for granted, thinking it would never happen to us, it couldn't happen here. And now that it has happened, America is stunned because we thought we was this invincible country.
Kevin, I was going to thank you very much. I wanted the Congress folks here to address that. I'm not sure that we'll ever know that we're done in this war. Do you think, Congressman?
Well, Bobby, the question came up at a news conference we had in Washington last week when we announced the introduction of our proposed declaration of war. One of the media people in Washington asked, well, how will you know when we won? I think we'll have a pretty good indication of when we will have at least achieved significant success. We may never eradicate from the face of the earth every terrorist, just the same as despite years of our war against mind-altering drugs, we'll never have a completely drug-free society. But that does not mean that we as a nation don't try. And I think, again, as I said and as others have said, we know a great deal about these organizations, I think, and people already, as we've gotten into the first week since this tragedy, we're finding out disturbing things about how much we actually did know, but the right information didn't get to the right people and so forth.
I was going to say, if we knew so much, how did intelligence miss this one?
Well, that's one of the most fundamental questions that we're starting to look at, and I think it is a question that we have to get some answers to. I think we're seeing, unbelievably as it is, 60 years after Pearl Harbor, Bobby, we're still seeing some of the same problems that plagued us back then. Poor cooperation from between our different intelligence agencies, people tending to discount certain very important information or intelligence that came in, lack of proper coordination, things not getting to the right people, and then, of course, the problems in executing proper security measures at our airports. It's really not so much the traveling public that is the problem here. It's allowing people access to the most sensitive areas of airports without background checks, without properly following up on lost badges, lost flight manuals, lost uniforms, and paperwork and so forth. These are very, very serious problems. And even though it's important perhaps for us to look at what new powers, if any, we need to grant to our government, I'm not interested in a headlong rush to pass more laws and take away more civil liberties. I think the problems are with enforcement of existing laws.
All right, hold on just a second here. Let me go to the audience. Reverend, do you have concerns?
It concerns me that we have not yet finished mourning the people who are considered or assumed to be dead, and there's many lives that are still coming up lost. There are families that are suffering and will continue to suffer. And it's my concern that we don't need to rush right now and send our young kids over there to shed more blood. We need to kind of get those who have been affected by this, let's give them a decent burial. And then I call on all the churches in America. Let's the churches step up to the plate and adopt a family. Let's the churches provide $1,000 to each one of these families, because we got breadwinners that are gone, that are lost, and children that don't have fathers, children that don't have mothers. We got breadwinners that have been lost, and I think now is the greatest time that the church can come forward, stand up, and give $1,000 to each family through the Red Cross. Let the Red Cross identify a family. The church would send that $1,000 to the Red Cross.
Good idea, Reverend. We're putting you in charge of that. Okay.
I would love to be in charge of that. Right. Through the Red Cross only, though.
Let me get an opinion here from Jason quickly.
My opinion is this: you have to remember, this has not bin Laden's first attack against the United States. This is a repeated several of attacks, and he is not going to stop. We have to take action against him and his organization now. I mean, how do you feel if you were going to go to a football game or to a baseball game? You're going to have to worry if bin Laden has his people there to blow it up. We have to take action. And as far as to declaring war against Afghanistan, we've given Afghanistan and the Taliban ample warning that anyone who aids and abets these fugitives, there will be no distinction. And the Taliban today refused to hand over bin Laden. So just like in the United States, even though if you don't commit a crime and you're not there, you're still an accessory. You know, Afghanistan and the Taliban, they're still an accessory to bin Laden and his terrorist acts against us.
And Larry over here quickly.
Yeah, I agree with you absolutely, but you know, I believe that it's imperative that we do strike back. But first of all, I also think that it's important that we gather intelligence on the people that were involved, the factions, the organizations that were behind this. I think it's imperative that we know who these people are. Undoubtedly, innocent people are going to be killed. I mean, that's just one of the consequences of war. But the bottom line is, let's just not go over there half-cocked. Let's go over there with a purpose, and let's execute that purpose when we go over there.
Congressman, looking to the future, and before you get out of here, I wanted to ask you about the counter-terrorist measures that Congress has been asked to pass. What will those entail? And I know there's a couple in particular that you would like to see changed.
One area, Bobby, that I have actually been working on for over a year now is to untie the hands of both our president and our intelligence agencies in a couple of areas. For example, to me, it doesn't seem to make any sense if we give a president authority to wage war and to bomb areas around the world, whether it's Kosovo, Somalia, or very possibly now Afghanistan, to try and take out a foreign terrorist leader, and yet we don't give him the authority to go in with a Delta Force team or a special operations team and take out that one individual. That doesn't make any sense, yet for a generation we've had a restriction on the books that won't allow us to assassinate a foreign terrorist leader. We ought to repeal that so the president has the full range of options available to him. Also, we don't need to tie the hands of our intelligence agencies so that they can only deal with those foreign agencies that have the same view of human rights as we do. That severely limits the ability of our intelligence agencies to gather intelligence information that could save us from this sort of thing.
Can't deal with just Boy Scouts, that's for sure.
There are very few in the world outside of America.
All right, Congressman Babar, I know you've got to go, but thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Bobby, and it's great
joining
being
us
with my
today.
former colleague and friend, Pat Schroeder.
And she will be staying with us as we go to a break here in just a few moments. Let me do some emails. Helen in North Carolina says, we must not give the terrorists what they want. To retaliate with force would give them an excuse to do it to us again. Just impose severe sanctions and embargoes on Afghanistan and any other country that supports the terrorists. Nick emails us, the morale of the American people will never rise until they see evidence that someone is paying dearly for this outrage. Stay with us. Gary Bauer will also be joining us. We'll be back right after this.
Market site where trading has been both brisk and down. Greg?
And Lou, I'll tell you, today's performance by the NASDAQ impressing a lot of folks. They're taking comfort in the fact that the NASDAQ is ending the session really right about where it began the session. It opened with about 100, 110-point drop, and that's pretty much where it finds itself now. Volume, percentage loss, point loss, not even close to being in the top 10 today. So those internal benchmarks really holding up nicely in the NASDAQ. Coming out of this session fairly well. We never saw the wave after wave of selling a lot of folks anticipated after that early wave of selling. Lou?
Yeah, Greg, as you say, the market not approaching even on percentage or absolute terms. We're going back to the New York Stock Exchange. You're listening to the closing bell on this historic session after these markets were open today after 4 days of closure following last week's devastating terrorist attack on downtown Manhattan, Wall Street. The NASDAQ, as Greg Clarkin said, not fitting into the top 10 in either percentage or point terms. However, that is not the case for the Dow. This the largest point decline ever for the Dow Jones Industrials. But again, in percentage terms, it appears that in percentage terms, this decline today, as large as it is in point terms, did not hit the top 10 point declines ever on percentage terms again for the Dow Jones Industrials. Let's go back to Rhonda Schaffler. Rhonda, as you said, orderly trading, nonetheless a significant decline. The sectors there hardest hit today, airlines, of course. What else?
Well, Lou, let's start first with a couple of the big losers on the Dow because this was a brutal day of selling. We want to show you what was responsible for much of the Dow's losses. It did include some of the cyclical names as well as financial stocks on the Dow: American Express, Boeing, Citigroup, General Electric, General Motors. Among those stocks getting very hard, the airlines on a percentage basis were the worst performers. That was not surprising when we consider the news we've heard from airlines over the weekend. The Dow Transportation Average sliding better than 400 points. There is the damage for the airline stocks: Continental, Delta, UAL, and Southwest, all sharply lower. Southwest faring a little bit better on a percentage basis. Also, the insurance stocks were among those hit very hard: Allstate, American International, Chubb, Cigna, and MetLife with losses. But Lou, there was buying here. It was both defensive in nature